welcome to the deep dive.
Mm.
Ever thought about, working from home, maybe in your pajamas, making good money without much hassle?
Huh?
Well, if you have, you probably bumped into today's topic,
Yeah.
work-at-home schemes. Maybe you're really for remote work. Maybe you're just curious. We're going to break it down.
Exactly. And these schemes, well, the Wikipedia article we looked at was updated just this February. It basically calls them a kind of siren song.
A siren song.
Yeah, promising easy money right from your living room. They really prey on that desire for flexibility, for income. But the key thing is, the rewards they promise, they're totally out of whack with the actual work, way above market rates.
So it's not really about giving you a job.
No, definitely not. It's about getting something from you.
Okay. So our mission for this deep dive is to really sort of get under the hood here. We want to understand the tricks they use, the potential dangers for you, and crucially, how you can tell these apart from real remote jobs.
Right, and the source article, it notes that most examples are from the US, but honestly, these core ideas, they pop up everywhere.
That makes sense. Are these scams a new thing, like an internet problem?
Not at all, actually. It's kind of fascinating. They've got a long history. The earliest ones studied properly, it goes way back to the Great Depression in the US, the 1920s, 30s.
Wow, really? What was it?
It was called envelope stuffing.
Envelope stuffing. That sounds almost harmless. How did that work back then?
Well, the original scam was pretty clever in its simplicity. You'd see an ad, right? Promising, say, $2 for every envelope you stuffed. Sounds easy.
Okay.
So to get started, you'd pay a small fee, maybe $2. But here's the twist. You didn't get envelopes to stuff.
No. What did you get?
You got a flyer template for the exact same envelope stuffing scheme you just paid to join.
Oh, I see.
The work was posting those flyers. So you were just roped into recruiting others into the scam. There was no real product, no real service, just money flowing up from new recruits. Classic pyramid structure, really.
Got it. So you pay to keep this scam going. And you said it started with printed ads. How did it evolve?
Oh, they've been incredibly adaptable. They just follow the media, started with newspaper ads, magazines, then moved on to TV commercials, radio spots, and now, of course, the internet. Online forums, ads, social media, you name it.
But the basic hook is the same.
Exactly the same. Easy money for little effort. That promise is timeless, it seems.
So let's focus on today. What are the common types now? Our source mentioned a few. What about that envelope stuffing? Does it still exist?
It does, yeah, just in a modern form. Still dangling that high pay for what sounds like simple work, right? Putting stuff in envelopes.
And they make it sound even easier now.
Oh, yeah. They'll say postage is prepaid, addresses are ready. Sounds like a dream. But just like the old days, you usually have to send a self-addressed stamped envelope first and often pay a little processing fee.
And what comes back in that envelope? Let me guess.
Yep.
The same flyer template you saw online?
Yeah.
Your only way to maybe make money is if someone else falls for the flyers you send out and pays the fee. It's like a digital chain letter pretending to be a job.
The core deception just doesn't change, does it? Okay, what's another common one people might see?
Another big one is assembly of items. Could be anything, craft kits, jewelry, sometimes even things like medical equipment parts.
Okay, so working with your hands at home sounds potentially legitimate.
That's the appeal. But the scam hits when you have to pay up front for the materials, the kits, whatever.
Ah, there's the upfront cost again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you pay, you spend your time assembling everything, then you try to sell the finished items back to the company,
Yeah.
and they get rejected. Almost always. They'll say the items don't meet specifications, or specifications that are usually vague or impossible to meet anyway.
So you're stuck with useless stuff you paid for. Precisely. You've lost money on the materials, and all that time you spent is wasted. It really shows, you have to check who the buyer is before you spend anything. Paying to work. Big red flag.
That sounds really awful. Losing money and effort. What about those ads for processing medical claims from home? That sounds more specialized.
Yeah, these prey on the idea that healthcare is complex and growing. They convince you, the potential victim, to buy expensive software, often hundreds of dollars.
Specialized billing software.
Right. The promise is you'll use the software to process claims from home, make great money, but the reality, most clinics do billing in-house.
Or they outsource.
Or they outsource, yeah. But to big established firms with really strict security, compliance, stuff an individual at home just can't meet. Plus, the software you bought, probably useless, outdated, incompatible. The work just never appears.
Okay, so paying for the opportunity, paying for materials, paying for software. What about schemes that seem less tangible, like email processing? What even is that?
Usually, it's just a fancy name for spamming.
Spam.
Yeah. You get instructions on how to plaster ads all over online forums. The way you supposedly earn money is by selling those same instructions to other people.
Ah, so it's the envelope stuffing pyramid again, just online.
Exactly. No real value created, just recruiting. And remember, that kind of forum spamming, it usually breaks the rules of the websites themselves. So
Hmm.
it's dodgy on multiple levels, not just a bad job.
Right. Okay, the next one sounds quite serious. Money mule schemes. What's going on there, and why is it so risky for people?
This is where you can get into real legal trouble, seriously. In these schemes, someone asks you to receive money into your bank account, usually checks.
Okay.
But the checks are fake, fraudulent. They tell you to deposit it, keep a cut for yourself, and wire the rest somewhere else to the employer.
And that's?
That's money laundering, plain and simple, moving dirty money to make it look clean. When that check bounces, and it will bounce.
You're on the hook for the money with the bank.
You are, for the full amount. But worse, because you helped move illegal funds, you could face criminal charges. Money laundering, fraud. People think it's a job, but they're actually being used to commit a crime. The consequences can be devastating.
That's terrifying. Just unknowingly stepping into a huge legal mess. What about reshipping? We hear about that sometimes, especially around the holidays.
Yes, exactly. Reshipping definitely spikes around the winter holidays. Basically, they recruit you to receive packages.
Packages of what?
Often high-value stuff, electronics, usually,
Okay.
bought with stolen credit cards.
Oh, wow.
Your job is to take these items, repackage them, and ship them again, usually overseas, often Eastern Europe. Sometimes they even have you ship it within the U.S. first, just to muddy the trail.
And how long does this go on?
Maybe a month or so.
Yeah.
Then the scammers just disappear. You never get paid, obviously. You might even be out of pocket for shipping supplies.
And your personal info.
Compromised. Big risk of identity theft. And while the police might not always go after the victims initially, if you ignore warnings, you could face charges for handling stolen goods.
So we've seen scams that cost you money, scams that waste your time, and scams that could land you in serious legal trouble. They all seem to play on that desire for easy, flexible work.
Absolutely.
So the big question for anyone listening.
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference? How do you spot these scams versus legitimate remote work?
That really is the key question, isn't it? And first, let's be clear. Real home-based businesses, real remote jobs, they absolutely exist. It's a growing field.
Right.
But there was a U.S. report back in 2007, and it suggested something pretty shocking. Around 97% of work-at-home offers were actually scams.
97%.
That's-
That's nearly all of them.
It's an incredibly high number. It means you have to be extremely careful. Default to skepticism, you know?
Definitely. So what are some giveaways? How can you tell a real opportunity from a scam?
Well, think about real jobs. Many legitimate remote roles often need some kind of qualification, right? Post-high school education, maybe specific trainings, certifications.
Experience too.
Often, yeah. Experience you might have gained in a traditional office setting first. And unlike the scam promises of easy work, real remote jobs, they take self-discipline, good communication skills. You have to manage yourself.
And they're not necessarily easier jobs in terms of security.
No, not at all. You can still get laid off or fired from a remote job just like any other. So if an offer says no skills needed, super easy work, huge pay, that's a massive red flag.
What about the job ads themselves? Anything to watch out for in the descriptions?
Definitely. Sometimes even ads for, well, maybe less appealing, but real jobs can be deceptive. They might exaggerate the pay or downplay how much effort is involved or make it sound like there's tons of work when it's actually inconsistent.
And sometimes they're vague about the actual work.
Very vague. That's another warning sign. If they can't clearly tell you what you'll be doing, be wary. You also see similar tactics with schemes for work away from home, like being a movie extra or a mystery shopper, promising big bucks for little time.
Mystery shopping, are those ever real?
Legitimate mystery shopping exists, yes, but it's actual work. You follow detailed instructions, write reports. The pay is usually closer to minimum wage, not huge amounts. And crucially, real mystery shopping companies never ask you to pay a fee to sign up.
The fee again.
Always watch out for the fee. If you have to pay them to start working, that's almost certainly a scam. Same goes for things like nanny jobs asking for money up front. Big red flag.
Okay. So let's say someone does get caught out. What are the consequences beyond just losing the initial fee or not getting paid? What's the real damage?
It can be pretty bad. Obviously, the first hit is loss of money, could be a small fee, or it could be scammers stringing you along asking for more and more money for different reasons.
Some just take the first payment and run.
Some do. Others are more insidious. They might even send you tiny payments occasionally, just to keep you hooked while they drain much more from you. We're talking potentially tens of thousands of dollars lost in some cases. And then there's the risk of identity theft if they got your personal info.
Which they often do. That's a huge worry. What else?
Well, people might actually lose their real job. They get so drawn in by the promise of the scam that they quit their stable job. Then the scam falls apart and they're left unemployed.
Ouch.
Your reputation can also be damaged, especially if the scheme involves selling dodgy products or something controversial. And then there's the really serious stuff, trouble with the law.
Like with the money mules and reshippers.
Exactly. You could unknowingly break the law for the scammer and end up being legally responsible. Sometimes victims can even get framed when the real criminals are investigated.
It sounds like a potential nightmare, just a whole cascade of problems.
It really can be. And don't forget the wasted time. All those hours spent doing fake work, time you could have used to find a real job or learn a skill, it's a significant loss.
And one last thing you mentioned.
Yeah, this one's sneaky. Your contact information often gets sold. Once you've been scammed, your details might end up on lists shared with other scammers, so you become a target for even more fraud attempts down the line.
That's just adding insult to injury. Now, the source mentioned COVID-19 briefly. How did the pandemic affect all this?
Yeah, unfortunately, the pandemic was like a perfect storm for these scams.
More people looking for remote work.
Exactly. Huge numbers of people lost jobs or were looking for ways to work from home because of lockdowns or health worries. The pool of potential victims just grew massively.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Did the source have any stats on that shift?
It mentioned some German data just for context. Like in 2018, maybe 12% of German workers occasionally worked remotely. But by April 2020, it jumped to 26% working fully from home and another 35% doing some remote work.
That's a huge shift.
Massive. And that rapid change, that surge in people searching for remote opportunities, just created fertile ground for scammers to exploit.
So, bringing this all together then, what's the absolute key thing for listeners to take away if they're looking at any work-from-home offer?
The main message is, be skeptical. These schemes look like easy money, flexible work. But they're designed to take your money or use you for something illegal or harmful. If an offer seems too good to be true,
It probably is.
it almost certainly is. Do your homework. Be incredibly cautious before you hand over any money or personal details or invest your time.
Sound advice. That old saying really does ring true. Which leaves us with a final thought for you, our listeners. We live in a world that's more digital, more remote work friendly than ever. So how can you personally sharpen your instincts? How do you build a better scam radar to protect yourself as these schemes keep evolving? Think about the psychology too, what makes these offers so tempting. And how can you guard against those very human vulnerabilities? Something to mull over as you navigate the modern world of work. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.